So as mentioned earlier, there's a quiz tool found in D2L. And so this is a great assessment tool you can use. Benefits, as mentioned earlier, you can make little quizzes for assessment of, for, and as learning. You can create them so that it automatically grades quizzes for you. So it's immediate feedback. It's like a video game. As I mentioned, that applied science class that I had, they had to get 100%. So they went in, and if they got 5 out of 10, they had to go back in and do it again. And like, it was immediate feedback. So it was really interesting to see how that worked in this day and age of the whole video game piece, because it was just like trying to complete a level of a video game. And so again, you can also set up quizzes so students have to get 100%. So in our physical education courses in grade 9, they have to do CPR. And so a whole bunch of the theory is set up in D2L, and they have to get 100% on the first theory quiz and that first part of the topic of CPR, 100% before it opens up the next quiz. So you can even design things that they don't get to the next piece unless they've got the first piece done. Then the other component is it meets IEP requirements for question types. So often students have things like using matching, true or false, or fill in the blank, multiple choice. And again, the beautiful thing about a lot of these is that the system will mark it for you. So it can really save a lot of time. This morning there was a CBC, they were talking about using technology so that you can do more with less, right? And so the trick is less time and getting more information from using technology. And D2L has the ability to do this for you. The other piece, again, so assessment tools. So tips would be chunking. So create small quizzes. The reason for that is it provides immediate feedback, and then allow the students to redo the quizzes. So you can make them have any number of attempts that you want them to have. Again, growth mindset, this isn't an issue today. So what I've done, or what I experienced, was that when I had that grade 9 applied science class, the first test we did through D2L, I put it all together in one big test. And so when students didn't do well, they wouldn't go back and redo it because they had to go back through the entire test. So the next time when I chunked it and made it into small quizzes, they had no problems going back to redo just a multiple choice section, because they only had to redo 10 questions and not an entire quiz. So again, trial and error found this out, but it's great motivation again for students, that whole video game thing, because it's like completing levels. So using the assessment tools to do chunking, very, very effective. Don't mix your written answer questions with those that can be automatically marked. This will save you time. Plus, again, when it marks it immediately and the kids see that they've only got 8 out of 15, they think they did poorly, but the other 7 marks were written and you haven't marked them yet. And so it just eliminates that whole feedback of the video game type thing where they're wanting to complete a level and do the best that they can. So don't mix anything that you have to mark manually with stuff that the computer will mark. And as I mentioned earlier, you can replace checking for understanding questions with actual quizzes. So instead of them just reading a question and clicking a button, it gives them the answer. Now what you can do is you can actually have them engaging with it in a quiz that tells whether they have the right answer or not. So what I'll do is I'll go back up actually from there. We'll take a quick look at some quizzes in the system. So here's some samples of some quizzes right here. And what these are quizzes for self-evaluation. So my French Immersion Careers course, they have to self-evaluate in use of French language. So every 2 weeks, they're basically doing one of these. So they simply go in to this quiz, they open it up. Again, it's designed based on multiple choice, and there are sort of marks assigned to each sort of level that they would pick. So it will give them a score in the end. So they go into here, they start the quiz, and then it gives them the questions that they have to self-evaluate on based on whether or not they're speaking French with their peers, whether they're asking questions, whether they're speaking French with the teacher, those different types of things. So the quiz functions quite powerful and quite versatile in what you can do with it. And so here you can see, so question number 1, it's when they communicate or talk in class, do they choose to speak in French for asking for information, right? And then it's always, almost always. And so they would click where they are. And at the end of this, it will actually give them an overall percentage out of 10 and give them an idea how they're doing in terms of use of French language. Our phys ed classes also do this with the strand A, so the active living, whether or not they're arriving to class on time, they're changed properly, they're respecting others. Again, whatever the success criteria that you want to make, you can put them in there for a self-evaluation, and it gives you a good idea of how the students feel they're doing on a variety of things. If they're way off, you can go back and obviously have a conversation with why they're way off. And if they're not, well, then they're not, right? But they are self-evaluating and they're aware of where they're at for those success criteria that you have tied to whatever the expectation is. Here's an example of the chunking piece. So this is even in my 4U Introduction to Kinesiology. So you'll notice that I have a multiple choice exam a matching exam, then a long answer exam. So basically the computer marks the first two for me. So aside from creating them, once they're created and the students complete them, I don't do anything with it. I don't even touch it, right? So this basically then gets pushed to the grade item straight up for me. All I have to do is mark the long answer questions that I've created, and that's it. So again, think back to the amount of time that's spent marking multiple choice, marking matching, right? The computer system does it for you. It's brilliant. It saves a ton of time. And if you want to, depending on the level, in this case, they don't get a second chance, but you could add second or third chances based on that's applied, academic, essentials, workplace. You can give them multiple chances with that growth mindset idea. And then the last example here was from that applied science class that I talked to about. And so you can see these little content quizzes that were created. So basically what happened there was I turned those checking for understanding questions into little quizzes that the students would then do. The students would then go in to the quiz right in class. They were using their phones. I had a few extra iPads that were available, but the students were able to go in and complete these quizzes, and it would mark it immediately once they were done. Once they had submitted it, it told them how they did, and I was requesting that they get 100%, so they had to go back in and they had to do it again. So these again are the questions that existed in the checking for understanding. Simply turn them into a small little quiz. This is true and false in this case, but forcing the students to engage in the content and then giving the information as to whether or not they understood the content or not. So the quizzes are quite powerful from that perspective in terms of what you can do with them.